listen carefully. Because what you are sensing right now is not imagination, and it is not emotional coincidence. That subtle tightening in your chest, that quiet awareness rising in your spirit, that feeling that something is about to come into the light, it did not appear randomly. You were drawn here because your spirit is already responding to a shift that has begun. There is something that has been concealed for a long time. Something buried beneath silence, delay, confusion, or false appearances. And even though you may not have had words for it deep down, you have felt it. You have felt that not everything around you was as it seemed. You have felt moments where reality didn't quite line up with truth. You have felt that certain answers were missing. Certain motives were unclear. Certain situations felt suspended in shadow. And yet, despite not seeing the full picture, you kept moving forward. That is not accidental. That is the mark of someone who is called to walk by discernment rather than sight. Right now, a moment of exposure is approaching. Not exposure meant to shame you, but exposure meant to free you. Because when God reveals what has been hidden, He is not tearing down your future. He is clearing it. He is removing what no longer belongs. He is separating truth from illusion, alignment from distraction, and purpose from delay. This message is not for everyone. It is for the one who has been faithful even when clarity was withheld. It is for the one who trusted God while walking through unanswered questions. It is for the one who refused to harden their heart even when they felt overlooked, misunderstood, or quietly tested. You are not late. You are not mistaken. You are not behind. You are standing at the edge of revelation. Something that was done in secret is about to lose its power. Something that was hidden to protect a lie is about to be confronted by truth. Something that confused you, drained you, or held you in uncertainty is about to make sense. Not because you chased answers, but because the appointed time has arrived. Stay with this message. Do not rush past it. What will be revealed as we move forward is not just information, it is positioning. And by the time we reach the end, you will understand why God allowed you to see only fragments before now, and why the full picture is finally ready to emerge. And the reason this moment feels so precise is because it did not originate from human timing. It did not come from emotional build-up, pattern recognition, or coincidence. What is unfolding now comes from a place far beyond surface awareness. This is not intuition alone, it is divine initiation. There are moments when God speaks loudly and moments when He speaks by arranging circumstances so perfectly that the message cannot be ignored. This is the second kind of moment. Nothing has been rushed. Nothing has been delayed unnecessarily. Everything has been held until your spirit could receive it without fear, without confusion, and without losing balance. God has been watching how you navigated uncertainty. He observed how you continued to show integrity even when clarity was missing. He saw how you restrained yourself when reacting would have been easier. That restraint was not weakness. It was evidence of growth. There are truths God withholds not because He doubts you, but because He values you. He does not reveal things to hearts that are still raw, reactive, or ruled by emotion. Revelation requires stability, and over time, He has been strengthening you quietly, steadily, intentionally. That is why this message arrives now. What is about to surface is not new to God. It has never been hidden from Him. It has only been hidden from your awareness, not as punishment, but as protection. If you had known earlier, you might have acted too quickly, trusted the wrong interpretation, or carried unnecessary weight. God spared you that burden. Divine authority works with precision. When God exposes truth, He does it in a way that restores order rather than creating chaos. This is not about sudden upheaval. It is about alignment, returning to its rightful place. You may have wondered at times why God seemed silent when you were asking honest questions. Why answers didn't come when you prayed sincerely. Why clarity appeared delayed even when you felt ready. But silence does not mean absence. Sometimes it means God is arranging the environment so that when truth arrives, it cannot be distorted. This is one of those moments. The revelation ahead is not meant to embarrass anyone or elevate ego. It is meant to correct direction, to remove distortion, to restore peace where confusion once lived. God is not reacting. He is intervening. And what makes this moment different from previous ones is that you are no longer asking for answers out of desperation. You are ready to receive them from a place of stability. That readiness is what gives this revelation its authority. Trust is being established here, not just trust in God, but trust in your ability to handle truth without losing yourself. You are not about to unravel. You are about to understand. As we move forward, allow yourself to stay open without becoming guarded. Let the truth come as it is, without forcing interpretation or rushing response. What God reveals next will not require defense or explanation. It will speak for itself. And when it does, you will recognize it not because it shocks you, but because something deep within you has been expecting it all along. And this is where the shift becomes unmistakable. What has been concealed is no longer able to remain hidden because the season that protected it has ended. Silence has completed its assignment. Waiting has fulfilled its purpose. The moment has arrived when truth must rise, not forcefully, not violently, but inevitably. There are things that have existed beneath the surface of your life for longer than you realized. Motives that were never spoken aloud, actions that were carefully disguised, intentions that operated quietly, while presenting something entirely different on the outside. And for a time, those things were allowed to remain unseen, not because they were right, but because exposing them earlier would have disrupted your growth. Now exposure is no longer a disruption. It is a release. What is being unveiled will not come all at once like a sudden explosion. It will come with clarity that feels almost calm, information aligning, patterns making sense. Realizations settling into place without resistance. You will not have to chase the truth, it will meet you. Some of what surfaces will explain why certain doors never fully opened, no matter how much effort you gave. Why certain relationships felt draining even when they appeared supportive. Why progress stalled at moments when momentum should have increased. These were not failures on your part. They were indicators of hidden misalignment. The prophecy is this: what operated in the shadows will lose its influence over your decisions. You will no longer be required to navigate blind. No longer asked to give the benefit of the doubt where discernment was already warning you. No longer pressured to stay loyal to confusion. Light is being introduced into places where you once felt uncertain, and that light will simplify what once felt complicated. Some truths will arrive gently through understanding rather than confrontation. Others may arrive suddenly through events that expose what words never could. But every revelation will carry the same signature clarity without chaos. And here is what matters most. This exposure is not about what others have done. It is about what you are being released from. You are being freed from carrying responsibility for things that were never yours to fix. Freed from questioning your perception. Freed from tolerating situations that required you to dim your discernment in order to maintain peace. Peace that requires blindness is not peace at all. As truth surfaces, certain dynamics will naturally shift. Conversations may stop happening. Access may quietly be removed. Roles may dissolve without explanation. Do not interpret this as loss. It is correction. When God unveils truth, He does not ask you to react. He invites you to realign. You may notice that as things come to light, your emotional response is steadier than you expected. That is confirmation that you are ready. Earlier versions of you might have felt anger urgency or the need to confront. This version understands that clarity is power enough. There is also something important to understand. Not everything being exposed will be negative. Some truths will affirm you. Some will validate choices you questioned. Some will confirm that delays were protection, not denial. What God is unveiling will explain why you survived certain seasons without understanding them, why restraint was required, why silence was necessary, why separation felt uncomfortable but unavoidable. The prophecy is unfolding now because you are about to step into a phase that requires full awareness. Partial truth would no longer sustain you. Fragmented understanding would only slow you down. The next level of your path demands clarity, and clarity is being provided. Nothing that surfaces will derail what God has prepared. In fact, everything being revealed is making room for it. And as the veil lifts, you will feel something shift internally. Not excitement, not fear, but certainty, a knowing. The kind that doesn't need explanation. The kind that settles your spirit and steadies your steps. The kind that tells you without words that what is being revealed now was always meant to come to light, and that you are finally ready to see it. And to understand why this unveiling feels so steady rather than overwhelming, you have to look beneath the surface of what exposure really means in the spiritual realm. Revelation is not about shock. It is about alignment. It is not meant to destabilize you. It is meant to recalibrate you. For a long time, you were walking with incomplete information, but complete faith. That matters. Faith that survives without explanation grows roots. And roots are what allow a structure to remain standing when light finally hits what was buried. If truth had arrived before those roots formed, it might have uprooted you instead of strengthening you. This is why timing matters so deeply in spiritual growth. There are seasons when God allows fog, not because the destination is unclear, but because the traveler is still becoming steady. Fog slows you down. It forces attentiveness. It teaches you how to move without relying on distant visibility. And once that lesson is learned, the fog lifts naturally. You are now in the season where the fog is lifting. Spiritually, exposure represents the transition from testing to trust. You are no longer being tested to see whether you will believe without answers. You are being trusted with answers because belief has already been proven. That is a significant shift. Light has always been present. It was simply diffused. Now it is becoming focused. Think of it like dawn rather than lightning. The world does not change instantly, yet suddenly everything becomes visible. Shapes emerge. Distances clarify. Paths reveal themselves without effort. That is what this season of exposure is doing internally and externally. Storms in the spiritual sense serve a similar purpose. They shake what is unstable so that what is rooted can remain. But storms are temporary. Light is enduring. And you are moving out of the storm phase and into the illumination phase. This matters because illumination does not demand survival. It invites direction. Another layer of this exposure is about doors. Doors are not just opportunities, they are permissions. Some doors did not open before because what stood behind them required discernment you were still developing. Walking through too early would have cost you peace. God prevented that. Now as truth surfaces, doors that once felt locked will either open naturally or no longer matter. And doors that once looked appealing may quietly close not as loss, but as mercy. Seasons change for a reason. You are not meant to carry winter clothing into spring. You are not meant to bring survival strategies into a season of clarity. Exposure is the signal that old methods are no longer required. You no longer need to guess. Spiritually, this is also a moment of identity reinforcement. Hidden truth has a way of distorting self-perception. When things feel unclear, people tend to internalize confusion. They wonder if they are the problem, if they misheard, if they misunderstood. Exposure corrects that internal narrative. Truth returns authority to the rightful place. What is being revealed now will help you see that your discernment was accurate long before proof arrived. That matters because it restores confidence, not arrogance, but grounded confidence. The kind that allows you to move forward without needing constant reassurance. Divine timing is not about delay for delay's sake. It is about preparation meeting opportunity. You are standing at that intersection now. And notice this, the exposure unfolding is not pulling you backward. It is clarifying the path forward. You are not being asked to relive the past, you are being released from it. Understanding does not chain you to what was. It frees you from carrying unanswered weight. Journeys always have thresholds. Moments where what worked before no longer works, and what comes next requires a clearer sense of direction. This exposure marks a threshold moment. You are stepping from endurance into intention. That shift requires light. Spiritually, light does three things. It reveals, it warms, and it guides. Right now, all three are happening simultaneously. Revelation shows you what was hidden. Warmth restores what felt strained. Guidance directs you where to go next. And because this light is divine rather than forced, it does not demand immediate action. It invites understanding first. Peace follows understanding. Action comes last. You do not need to rush this season. Rushing would only recreate the urgency of a time that has already passed. Instead, allow clarity to settle. Let understanding become stable. Let wisdom replace reaction. This is how exposure completes its work. And as it does, you will notice something subtle but powerful. You are no longer carrying confusion as a companion. It is falling away naturally, like excess weight that no longer belongs to you. That is the deeper meaning of what is unfolding now. Not exposure for its own sake, but liberation through truth. And once truth has done its quiet work, the next phase can begin without resistance. And as this liberation through truth unfolds, it does not happen without confirmation. God never releases revelation into a vacuum. He surrounds it with signs, not dramatic displays meant to impress, but quiet indicators meant to reassure you that what you are sensing is real and already in motion. One of the first signs is an unexpected sense of mental clarity. Thoughts that once looped endlessly now come to rest more easily. You are no longer replaying scenarios, questioning motives, or trying to decipher hidden meanings. The mind feels calmer, not because everything has been resolved externally, but because something has been resolved internally. Confusion is loosening its grip. Another sign appears through emotional neutrality. Situations or people that once stirred strong reactions now feel distant, almost neutral. Not cold, not bitter, simply clear. This is a powerful indicator that discernment has replaced emotional attachment. When truth settles in the spirit, it no longer needs emotional charge to sustain it. A third sign shows up through unprompted revelations. Information surfaces without you searching for it. People speak more than they intend to. Situations reveal themselves through actions rather than explanations. What once required investigation now arrives effortlessly. This is a sign that concealment is no longer being supported. You may also notice a shift in timing. Delays that once frustrated you now feel protective. Interruptions suddenly make sense. Plans change, but instead of anxiety, there is a strange sense of relief. This is confirmation that alignment is actively working on your behalf, even when outcomes are not yet visible. Another sign is repetition. Similar themes begin appearing from different directions: conversations, messages, inner impressions, or quiet realizations that keep returning until they settle. This repetition is not coincidence. It is reinforcement. God often repeats what matters most until the heart fully receives it. There is also a bodily sign that many overlook: a release of tension. Shoulders relax. Breathing deepens. Sleep becomes more restorative. These are signals that the nervous system is responding to safety. Truth creates safety because it removes the need to stay alert for unseen threats. Finally, there is a subtle but unmistakable shift in your intuition. You trust it more readily. You hesitate less. You feel less need to explain your decisions. That confidence is not learned, it is restored. It comes from alignment between what you sense and what is being revealed. All of these signs point to the same reality: exposure is already happening. Not loudly, not chaotically, but steadily, unmistakably, and with precision. And the fact that you are noticing these signs without panic is important. It means you are not merely witnessing revelation, you are integrated with it. You are not watching truth unfold from the outside. You are participating in it from a place of readiness. These confirmations are not meant to push you forward prematurely. They are meant to steady you where you are, to remind you that you are not imagining this shift, that your awareness is accurate, that the season has genuinely changed. You do not need to announce what you are seeing. You do not need to explain what you are sensing. Recognition is enough, because when God confirms something this clearly, it is not an invitation to react, it is permission to trust. And trust is what carries you smoothly into what comes next. And even with clarity increasing and confirmation surrounding you, there is still a quiet stretch of road ahead where hidden challenges may surface, not to stop you, but to strengthen what has already been revealed. Exposure does not remove every difficulty instantly. It removes confusion, and that changes how difficulty feels. One challenge you may encounter is emotional aftershock. When truth settles in fully, there can be a brief wave of emotion that follows, not because the truth is harmful, but because it closes a chapter that once required hope, patience, or restraint. You may feel a momentary sadness for what could have been, even as you feel relief for what now is. Allow that emotion to pass without judgment. It is not regression, it is release. Another challenge may appear as temptation to explain yourself. Once clarity arrives, there is often an impulse to make sure others understand what you now see. But this season does not require explanation. Truth that comes from God does not need your defense. Over-explaining can pull you back into dynamics you have already outgrown. You may also face subtle pressure to re-engage with situations that exposure has already clarified. Familiar patterns can resurface briefly, testing whether you will respond from old habits or new awareness. This is not a sign of failure. It is a final confirmation of growth. What once confused you will now feel obvious, and that contrast is intentional. There can also be a challenge in the form of impatience. Once you see clearly, you may want movement to happen immediately. You may feel ready to step fully into what is next and grow frustrated if the external world does not keep pace with your internal clarity. Remember that alignment moves in layers. Understanding comes first. Manifest change follows. Another hidden challenge is self-doubt trying to return quietly. Thoughts like, "What if I misread this?" or "What if I'm being too firm?" may attempt to surface. These thoughts do not come from discernment, they come from transition. When old uncertainty loses ground, it often makes one last attempt to linger. Do not engage it. You do not need to revisit what clarity has already settled. The final challenge is subtle but important: learning to rest in clarity without urgency. When you have spent a long time in survival mode, peace can feel unfamiliar. You may feel the urge to stay alert, to anticipate problems, to remain emotionally prepared. But this season is not asking for vigilance, it is asking for trust. None of these challenges are meant to derail you. They are simply the final adjustments that occur when weight is being set down. You are learning how to move forward without carrying what once defined your endurance. And this is where encouragement matters most. You are not losing momentum. You are stabilizing it. You are not being slowed. You are being anchored. What lies ahead does not require struggle to access. It requires steadiness. These challenges are not signs that something is wrong. They are signs that something is completing its work. And completion often feels quieter than beginning. Let each challenge pass without resistance. You do not need to solve them. You only need to remain aligned while they fade. Because once they do, the path ahead will feel unmistakably clear, not because every detail is visible, but because you will no longer be walking against yourself. And that is when preparation gives way to instruction. And now that the weight of confusion has been lifted, instruction can finally land without resistance. Guidance always follows clarity. God does not give direction to a heart still tangled in uncertainty. He waits until understanding has settled, until discernment is steady, until obedience can flow without fear. What you are receiving in this season is not a list of rigid commands. It is alignment-based instruction, subtle, precise, and deeply empowering. The first instruction is this: remain still internally, even if movement begins externally. You do not need to rush to act on everything you now understand. Clarity does not demand immediacy. Wisdom knows when to wait and when to move. Let peace be the signal, not urgency. If something requires pressure to maintain, it is not being led by God. The second instruction is to honor what clarity has already shown you. Do not override discernment out of nostalgia, guilt, or the desire to keep things familiar. You are not being asked to punish anyone or confront anything. You are simply being asked not to unsee what God has allowed you to see. Alignment begins with honesty. Another instruction is to simplify. Exposure often reveals how much unnecessary weight you have been carrying. Obligations that drained you. Conversations that required emotional labor. Roles you assumed out of responsibility rather than calling. You are not meant to carry all of that forward. Release does not require announcement. Quietly lay it down. God is also instructing you to strengthen your boundaries without explanation. Boundaries are not walls built out of fear. They are lines drawn out of clarity. You are allowed to say less, to step back without justification, to protect your peace without apology. This is not withdrawal, it is stewardship. There is also an instruction to guard your words carefully in this season. Not everything you now understand needs to be spoken aloud. Some truths are seeds meant to grow privately before they are ever shared. Speaking too soon can expose something before it has taken full root. Silence here is not secrecy, it is wisdom. Another important instruction is to stay grounded in integrity. Clarity can tempt people into righteousness or judgment, but that is not your role. You are not being positioned above anyone. You are being positioned correctly. Let humility keep your heart soft, while truth keeps your vision clear. God is also inviting you to rebuild trust with yourself. For a long time, you questioned your perception. You second-guessed your instincts. You looked outward for confirmation of what you sensed inwardly. Now instruction is turning inward again. Listen. Notice. Pause when something feels off. Move when something feels aligned. This is not self-reliance, it is discernment restored. And finally, there is an instruction to prepare quietly for movement. Preparation does not always look like action. Sometimes it looks like rest. Sometimes it looks like reorganizing priorities. Sometimes it looks like clearing space emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. Make room. What comes next will require space to settle. None of these instructions are heavy. None of them are meant to overwhelm you. They are gentle adjustments, fine-tuning alignment, rather than forcing transformation. You are not being asked to become someone new. You are being invited to live as who you already are without distortion. Urgency exists here, but it is not frantic. It is purposeful. It says, pay attention, not hurry. God is not rushing you. He is positioning you. If you follow these instructions, you will notice something important. Decisions become easier. Discernment becomes quicker. Peace becomes more consistent. You stop negotiating with clarity. You stop revisiting what God has already settled. This is what empowerment looks like spiritually. Not control, not dominance, but alignment so clear that movement becomes natural. And as you walk in this instruction, protection begins to surround you in ways you do not have to manage yourself. And as you begin to walk in this clarity, something quietly but powerfully shifts around you. Protection no longer feels like something you have to ask for. It becomes something you are wrapped in. Not loudly announced, not dramatically displayed, simply present. You may notice that situations that once drained you no longer have access to your energy. Conversations that once pulled you into confusion seem unable to reach you in the same way. It is not because you are guarded or closed off. It is because discernment has formed a covering around you. Divine protection often looks like limitation. Fewer entanglements, clearer priorities, reduced exposure to unnecessary noise. This is not isolation, it is insulation. God is preserving your peace by filtering what reaches you. You are being guarded not just from harm, but from distraction. There is also protection over your mind. Thoughts that once spiraled now settle more quickly. Fear no longer gains momentum the way it used to. When questions arise, they do not overtake you. That stability is not self-discipline alone. It is assurance settling in. You are being reminded quietly and consistently that you are not responsible for managing outcomes. Your role is alignment. God's role is covering. When those roles remain in their proper place, peace becomes sustainable. Protection also shows up as timing. You may feel prompted to pause right before something would have cost you energy. You may miss opportunities that later reveal themselves as burdens. You may arrive late to things that no longer matter. None of this is accidental. It is guidance working ahead of you. There is an assurance being restored here as well. An inner knowing that says, I am not alone in this process. Even when external confirmation is minimal, there is an internal steadiness that does not waver. That steadiness is not based on circumstance. It is based on trust. God is not watching from a distance. He is actively involved in the details you do not see, the conversations you are not part of, the outcomes you cannot influence. You are being covered in ways you will only understand later. And perhaps most importantly, there is protection over your heart. Truth has surfaced without hardening you. Clarity has come without bitterness taking root. That is not accidental. It is intentional preservation. God values the condition of your heart more than the speed of your progress. You are not being rushed forward unguarded. You are being guided forward safely. If moments of uncertainty still arise, let assurance answer them. You do not need to brace yourself. You do not need to anticipate harm. You are allowed to move through this season with trust rather than tension. Nothing that is meant for you can bypass divine order. Nothing that is not meant for you can attach itself without being exposed. That is the nature of protection, rooted in truth. Rest in that. You are not carrying this transition alone. You are not navigating clarity without covering. Every step you take in alignment is met with support you do not have to manage. And with that assurance in place, you are now free to look ahead not with apprehension, but with expectation toward the transformation that clarity always brings. And as this assurance settles around you, something begins to change from the inside out. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but unmistakably. The transformation you are entering does not announce itself with noise. It reveals itself through stability, through confidence that no longer needs reinforcement, through peace that does not collapse under pressure. You begin to notice that you are moving differently. Decisions feel cleaner. You hesitate less, not because you are reckless, but because you are no longer negotiating with uncertainty. You trust your discernment. You trust the clarity that has come. And most importantly, you trust yourself again. This is a significant shift. For a long time, you carried responsibility that did not belong to you. You tried to make sense of things that were intentionally unclear. You extended grace where truth was required. That season refined your character, but it also exhausted you. Transformation begins when that exhaustion is replaced with ease. Ease does not mean everything becomes effortless. It means effort is no longer wasted. You will feel lighter emotionally, not numb, free. Free from overthinking, free from replaying conversations, free from second-guessing your instincts. The mental space that opens up will surprise you. Creativity returns, focus sharpens, rest feels deeper. Fulfillment does not arrive as a single event. It arrives as alignment sustained over time. You may notice that the environment around you responds differently. People interact with you differently. Some gravitate closer, sensing clarity and steadiness. Others drift away, not out of conflict, but because alignment has changed. This is not rejection. It is resonance adjusting. Transformation also affects how you view the future. You are no longer scanning the horizon for threats or obstacles. You are looking forward with measured expectation. You know that challenges may still arise, but you also know you are equipped to meet them without losing yourself. This is what fulfillment looks like spiritually. Not constant excitement, but deep satisfaction. Not endless striving, but purposeful movement. You are stepping into a version of yourself that no longer needs to prove anything. You are not chasing validation, you are walking in alignment. And alignment always brings fulfillment, even before outcomes fully manifest. There is gratitude in this stage, not just for what is coming, but for what is complete. You survived confusion without becoming cynical. You endured delay without losing faith. You walked through uncertainty without abandoning integrity. Those qualities now form the foundation of what you are building next. Transformation also brings readiness. You feel prepared not because you have all the answers, but because you trust the process that brought you here. You understand now that clarity did not come to remove mystery, it came to remove distortion. And with distortion gone, purpose becomes easier to recognize. Fulfillment is not about arriving at a destination. It is about moving forward without resistance inside yourself. That is where you are now. Internal alignment has caught up with external direction. You are no longer fragmented. What you believe, what you sense, and how you move are coming into harmony. That harmony is powerful. It stabilizes your emotions. It sharpens your focus. It allows you to receive what comes next without fear. This transformation is not temporary. It is not a high that fades. It is a recalibration that lasts. And as it settles fully, you will realize that the exposure you once feared was actually the doorway to the fulfillment you were prepared for all along. What remains now is to seal this season, not with effort, but with faith, and to step gently into what unfolds next. And now, as everything settles into its rightful place, there is nothing left to chase, nothing left to force, nothing left to prove. What needed to be revealed has been revealed. What needed to be understood has been understood. You are standing in a moment of quiet completion. This is where faith becomes rest. Not the kind of rest that disengages, but the kind that trusts. The kind that knows the path ahead will unfold step by step without pressure, without confusion, without the need for constant reassurance. You have crossed a threshold. And even if the world around you has not fully changed yet, you have. Let these affirmations anchor what has been sealed in your spirit. You can repeat them softly or hold them inwardly, allowing them to settle deeply. Truth works in my favor. What is revealed brings freedom, clarity, and peace into my life. I trust divine timing. Nothing arrives too early or too late. Everything unfolds with purpose. I move with clarity and confidence. I no longer doubt what God has shown me. I am protected, guided, and supported. I am never alone in what lies ahead. Let these words become steady companions, not declarations made once, but truths you return to whenever doubt tries to revisit what has already been resolved. And now receive this blessing. May every truth that needed to surface do so with grace rather than chaos. May every revelation restore peace rather than disturb it. May clarity guard your heart and wisdom guide your steps. May what is no longer aligned fall away gently without struggle. And may what is meant for you recognize you easily and meet you without resistance. May your mind remain calm, your spirit remain steady, and your path remain clear. May you trust yourself as deeply as you trust God. And may this season mark the end of confusion and the beginning of grounded movement. You do not need to look back. Nothing there requires your attention anymore. You do not need to rush forward. What is ahead is already aligning. Remain present. Remain open. Remain at peace. Everything that was hidden and needed to be revealed has done its work, and everything that comes next will come from a place of truth. Rest here for a moment. Then when you move again, move with confidence, knowing this season has been sealed.